November 2021, I flew from Philadelphia to Las Vegas for a jiu-jitsu competition. I travel a lot, usually staying with other teams to save money, but this time I was alone. I hurriedly booked an Airbnb close to the Strip, not realizing the area was questionable. Something about it felt wrong. I almost canceled, but convinced myself otherwise. After all, it was cheap, close to the venue, and I wouldn't be there much anyway. When I arrived, there was no host to greet me. Not that I'd recognize them. The profile picture was just a flower. They'd set me a key code to let myself into the room. It was a small studio attached to their house, separated by only a thin wall. The entrance had one single door, no back exit. The first thing that felt off, the lock's code was 123567. I paused, uneasy. Who uses something so absurdly easy? The Wi-Fi password was just password, which made it worse. I brushed it off, thinking, maybe the host is old and doesn't understand security. The reviews were good, so I tried to push the discomfort away. As night fell, the stillness in the room grew heavier. By 9:30 p.m., I was lying in bed, teetering on the edge of sleep, when I heard it. A faint tapping on the window directly in front of me. My breath caught. The drapes were drawn, shielding the view outside, but I knew someone was there. A sharp chill crawled up my spine. Huh? I called out, loud enough for whoever it was to hear me. Silence. A minute passed, 2. Then tap, tap, tap. Hello? My voice was firmer this time, though my chest felt tight. The tapping stopped, the oppressive silence returned, suffocating and absolute. My fingers trembled as I messaged the host. Is it you at the window? I asked. An hour crawled by before they responded. I was going to bring you some water, but thought you were asleep, so I left. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. That didn't feel right. Something was wrong. I decided to stay awake, my gut screaming at me to stay alert. Around midnight, I heard it. Faint shuffling outside the door. My pulse quickened as I listened closer. A faint beep followed, the sound of the keypad. Someone was trying to unlock the door. The first attempt failed. Then, a pause. My breathing hitched as I heard it again. Beep, beep, click. The lock disengaged. The door creaked open, inching toward me. Panic surged through me. Throwing the blanket aside, I bolted for the door and slammed it shut with all my strength. The impact echoed, and I yelled, "Get out of here! This is my room!" From the other side, a low, unfamiliar voice growled. Midel said, "This is my room." My blood ran cold. Midel. That was the name of the host. I pressed my weight against the door, shouting back, "Leave now. I'm calling the cops." My voice shook as I dialed. Whoever was out there didn't say another word, but I could hear them breathing, heavy, deliberate breaths, before the sound faded into the night. The police arrived quickly, but their reaction was unsettling. They weren't surprised. One officer stayed while I packed my things and ordered an Uber. When I finally escaped, the host confronted me. Unapologetic, their story shifting with each excuse. The person? Oh, they were a neighbor. Then, they were a friend. Their lies didn't add up. Even now, I can't forget the sound of that door unlocking. I never saw the person trying to enter, and that terrifies me the most. Was it a robbery? Or something far worse? Looking back, I realized they knew my schedule. The tapping at 9:30 p.m. was 12:30 a.m. my time. They wanted me disoriented, groggy. They knew when I'd be most vulnerable. Whatever their plan was, I'm just glad I slammed that door in time. I had to book an Airbnb in Arizona for a job interview, far from home. Since it was such a long drive, I decided to turn it into a short getaway. The place I chose wasn't fancy. It was cheap, way cheaper than the hotels nearby. It sat at the end of a lonely, dead-end road, with nothing around but desert stretching endlessly behind it. The house itself was small, quiet, and isolated, exactly what I thought I needed. I planned to stay 3 days. My interview was on the second day, a Tuesday, and I'd head home Friday. I spent most of my first day working remotely on my laptop. At night, though, as the vast silence of the desert closed in, I started preparing for my interview, reading, practicing questions, and researching the company. It was around 9 p.m. when I first heard it. A soft, deliberate tap against the window. The sound froze me. It wasn't loud enough to be a knock, but it wasn't random either. My heart skipped as I turned my head toward the window. The living room lights reflected on the glass, but beyond that, only blackness. Something about that darkness felt alive. I forced myself to get up, heart pounding, and walked to the window. My breath fogged the glass as I peered out into the emptiness. No movement. No one there. Just shadows swallowing the desert. Maybe it was nothing, I told myself. A bug, maybe. Arizona has plenty of them. I tried to shake the thought as I went to bed, but unease lingered like a shadow in the corner of my mind. The next day I nailed the interview, or at least I thought I did. Feeling accomplished, I decided to enjoy the rest of my trip. I explored the nearby town, tried a few restaurants, and even lounged in the backyard, basking in the sun. The backyard, surrounded by bushes and nothing but desert beyond, felt oddly quiet. Too quiet. I didn't know it then, but someone, somewhere, might have been watching me. That night, I curled up in the living room, laptop on my lap, watching Breaking Bad. The glow of the screen lit up the room. The silence of the house was thick, pressing down on me, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioner. And then it came again. A single, deliberate tap on the window. This time, my body tensed immediately. It was too precise to be random, too soft to be the wind. Someone, or something, was out there. Adrenaline surged through me as I forced myself to look. I moved quickly to the window, heart hammering, and threw back the curtain. Nothing, but the emptiness didn't comfort me. It made my skin crawl. Whoever it was, they were smart, careful. I checked the front door windows, then stepped outside onto the porch. The cold desert air bit at my skin as I scanned the area. The world felt vast and empty, yet I could feel someone out there. And then, I heard it. A sound, faint, unnatural. Click. The noise came from beyond the porch light's reach, somewhere out in the darkness. It was unmistakable. A sharp, deliberate click, like someone clicking their tongue. My eyes darted toward the sound, heart racing. I called out, "Who's there?" My voice echoed uselessly into the night. Almost mockingly, another click responded. I squinted, straining to see, and then I saw them. A figure, motionless, standing just beyond the edge of the light. They were dressed in dark clothing, blending into the shadows of the desert. I stepped forward, then stopped myself. Something in me screamed not to get any closer. Instead, I shouted, "You're trespassing. Get out of here, or I'll call the cops." The figure didn't move at first. Then, without a word, they turned and walked away. Not hurriedly, eerily calm, like they had nothing to fear. I went back inside, locking every door and window. My mind raced with questions. Was it the Airbnb host, a random trespasser, or something worse? The next night, I tried to distract myself. Back in bed, I started watching Breaking Bad again, hoping it would calm me down. An hour passed, maybe 2, and everything seemed fine. Quiet. But when I finally turned off the light, ready to sleep, I heard it again. Click. This time, it wasn't outside. It was inside. The sound came from the closet. My breath hitched as I stared at the closet door, which hung open just a crack. Every instinct screamed at me to run, and I did. I bolted from the bed, grabbed my keys, and ran out of the house in my pajamas. I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and started the engine. My hands trembled as I called 911, my eyes glued to the house, waiting, dreading what might come out. When the police arrived, we searched the house together. It was small, with nowhere to hide, yet the closet door had been open, and I knew I'd left it closed. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of anyone else being there. Still, I packed up my things and left that night, heading to a nearby hotel. I contacted Airbnb and the host, but their responses gave no answers, just excuses. To this day, I believe it was the host. Who else would have a key? But part of me wonders, could it have been someone else? Someone who had been waiting, watching the entire time? I rent out my South Carolina beach house on Airbnb when I'm not using it. It's a cozy 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house tucked near the shoreline. Renters have access to the 2 guest rooms, but the master bedroom is off limits. That's my space. I keep it locked with a regular lock and a deadbolt. No one gets in there unless they plan to break down the door or smash through the window. But it's not like I keep priceless treasures in there. Mostly just clothes and personal items I don't want to lug back and forth every time I visit. This happened last spring. Massachusetts, where I usually live, was still bitterly cold, so I decided to drive down to South Carolina for the week. I work remotely, which gives me the luxury of escaping whenever I need to. Typically, I hire a cleaning service after guests check out. The fee is baked into the rental price. But this time, I planned to clean it myself and pocket the extra cash since I'd be arriving right after the current renter left. The guest before me was named Rahman. He said he'd be staying with his fiancée and even asked for restaurant recommendations. He seemed polite, trustworthy. I've always preferred renting to couples or small groups of women. They tend to leave the place cleaner than rowdy groups of young men. The drive was brutal, a grueling 16 hours with only brief stops for food and bathroom breaks. By the time I arrived, it was already 10 p.m. Exhausted, I unlocked the door, dragged in my bags, and stumbled to my bedroom. I didn't inspect the house. I didn't check the guest rooms. I didn't even brush my teeth. I unlocked the master bedroom, crawled into bed, and passed out almost instantly. But peace didn't last long. I woke up abruptly, my room cloaked in total darkness. The clock on the nightstand glowed 11:30 p.m., barely an hour and a half after I'd fallen asleep. My chest tightened as I lay there listening. Something had woken me. I reached for my phone, more out of habit than anything, and glanced at the screen. Nothing unusual. I turned on the bedside lamp, the warm glow cutting through the shadows. The room was still. Frowning, I got up, deciding to check the house. Maybe I was just on edge from the long drive. The living room was quiet, untouched. Nothing seemed out of place. No scattered pillows, no half-empty drinks, not even a stray crumb. The guest bedrooms were just as pristine. One bed had been used, the covers slightly disturbed, but otherwise spotless. Rahman and his fiancée must have been neat freaks. Then I remembered the porch camera. I never think to check it unless a renter gives me trouble, but curiosity gnawed at me. I opened the camera app on my phone and scrolled through the footage. The camera showed Rahman entering the house 3 days earlier, using the code lock. But he was alone. No fiancée. A chill crept down my spine. I rewound the footage, scanning for signs of anyone else. There was nothing. No one entered or left the house after Rahman arrived, until me. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Something didn't add up. Trying to calm myself, I opened the Airbnb app and messaged Rahman, asking if he'd checked out okay. Then I went back to the guest bedroom where he'd stayed. I started searching, under the bed, inside the closet, anywhere someone might hide. Each time I yanked a door open, my breath hitched, half expecting to find something. Or someone. Nothing. The second guest bedroom was untouched, the twin beds still perfectly made. The closets there were also empty. I was beginning to feel ridiculous when I heard it. A faint click. The sound came from the master bedroom. I froze. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't a random creak of the house settling. It was deliberate. Someone had shut the door. My heart raced as I crept toward the living room, my eyes fixed on the master bedroom door. Through the crack beneath it, I saw the light was still on. "Rahman?" I called, my voice trembling. "Are you still in here?" No answer. Dropping to my hands and knees, I peered under the door. My stomach dropped when I saw them. 2 feet. They were motionless, standing just a couple of feet behind the door. I scrambled back, panic gripping me. My mind raced. I bolted to the kitchen, yanked open the knife holder, and reached for the largest carving knife, but it was gone. The knife was already missing. My options were shrinking. My breathing was erratic as I stumbled toward the front door, fumbled with the lock, and burst outside. I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and called 911. I sat in the driveway, staring at the house, my hands shaking. The police arrived within minutes. 4 officers entered the house while I waited outside, gripping my phone like a lifeline. Then they brought him out, Rahman. He stood in the living room, speaking in a calm, almost casual tone. His Portuguese accent made his words sound polite, almost innocent. He claimed he'd just needed one more night in the house, but his story didn't add up. He denied taking the knife, though it had somehow reappeared in the knife holder. His calm demeanor made my skin crawl. After what felt like an eternity of questioning, the police let him go. They advised me to contact Airbnb and sort it out through them. I was furious. After everyone left, I changed the lock code and reported Rahman to Airbnb. They banned him from the platform, but I didn't receive payment for the extra night he squatted in my home. Even now, I can't stop thinking about those few minutes when he stood behind my bedroom door. Waiting, watching, and I'll never know what he planned to do with that knife.